They used to tell me, say, if the breeze blow my balls.
If it don't suit you and it suits me, it's your business.
I'm making it
That's
specifics.
If my son turning 25, March 23rd, go with like a 50-year-old woman, hell no, I'm not having it.
I love looking at my girl.
So technically, I'm 35.
As women, we need to maintain our sex appeal.
I'm gonna live and die a cougar, honey. Hi girls, welcome back to the FORTYish Podcast. We're coming off an amazing first week.
Indeed.
It was powerful. The feedback was amazing. Tell me, how was it for you guys?
For me, it was awesome, you know. Being the character that I am, I've got a lot of feedback about my character. And, you know, I'm just grateful for everything. I'm grateful for both of you guys and grateful for this journey because, like I said before in the previous video, God is going to use this for me to impact many lives. How was it feeling?
It was amazing for me. I got a lot of feedback from persons who were not aware of themselves about menopause, and it was a taboo topic. So a lot of persons are coming out, having this conversation with me, men, women. So it's been an amazing feedback. We had a successful first episode.
Yay!
That's it.
Yeah, I essentially had a lot of positive feedback as well. Of course, people wanted to get into my business, who was the 39-year-old, but no.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Oh, but of course. Listen, I firmly believe that as long as you're happy with whoever you're with, age is just a number. You just gotta vibe.
No, but not a 19 years old with a 40 years old. Like,
it
no.
depends on what it is.
Oh,
people
hell
are
no,
looking
not
for.
my son.
So here's my thing. But it's up to your son. At
No.
the end of the day, it's up to your
I
son.
highly disagree. If my son turning 25, March 23rd, go with like a 50-year-old woman, hell no, I'm not having it.
You're not gonna be okay. But what if he pushes back?
No, I don't think he.
Then when the lady comes in the picture,
I don't think I train him that way.
When the lady comes in the room, then I'm sure she's
Yeah.
not going to be the nice, hi, how are you? Come sit down.
But I really do think it should be a cutoff, though. Like, seriously. I do.
But who
And I
determines
mean,
the cutoff?
I know, and I know I'm in an age gap relationship, but I do believe that we have to set some standard. Well, you know, you can say how you want to say it, but I do believe that there, and if anybody disagree with me, please comment, but I do believe that there should be a cutoff.
Well, if you're looking at from the perspective of stages of life, in the sense that an older person, be it male or female, would have lived a little bit, and the younger person is just kind of starting to establish themselves in their profession, financially, you know, career, all of that stuff, there is going to be a difference in terms of where you are in life when it comes to paying bills, right? The older person, male or female, may already have a home. The younger person may not have had the experience of going through, like, you know, shopping for a home, being established in their career, etc., etc. But on a personal level, it may not necessarily be that the older established person needs somebody who's going to meet them at the same place financially. It could just be for emotional support. And where you get your emotional support, people don't necessarily foresee it. Right. Sometimes it's just one of those things.
Yeah, but think about it. Like my son, he's 25. He's 24. It's going to be 25 in 2 weeks. And then say a 50-year-old woman. Mm-hmm. My son he doesn't experience enough, I think, to be in that environment. I think that is a setup for disaster. Because think about it. Yes, maybe a 35, because we do agree that.
So that's 10 years. So yeah. your cap is 10.
Well, not necessarily, because you're 12. So I'm advocating for her. So, you know, we can. So 15 years. That would be my cutoff.
Fair enough. How do you feel about it? Because you have a 17-year-old son, right?
I do have a 17-year-old son, and I do see how older women be looking at him because he looks more mature. He looks like he's actually 21, 22. Mm-hmm. So he came to me one day and said, "Mommy, do I look older than I am right now?" Like when we went to Europe, there was older women buying him drinks. I'm like, "Come here, no, we're not doing that." So yes, we I see how it could impose a problem, that age gap, the experience, like you said, you think he's not ready for that, but then the woman might be ready and to teach him all these things, the home owner shopping, building his credit, so on and so forth.
So she's going to be his mother, is what you're saying.
There would have to be a borderline. It's a very tedious situation, because how about a man and a younger woman?
There you go.
And I believe
would society more accepts a situation like that, because he's going to have to be her father in the terms that you're looking at it.
So yeah, 15 on both aspects.
Man, woman, that's your cutoff. That's your cutoff.
May I offer you a perspective though? Because I'm thinking back to when I was 35. Obviously, when I was 35, and even at 40, right? I would not for sure date a 20-year-old. Right? But in my situation, where my other half is 39, he's established in his career. He has his own home. He's mature beyond a 25-year-old mind. So I think in my situation, it really doesn't matter. And especially given the fact that I've dated men my age, and I have found them to sometimes be very immature. Chronologically, they're my age. Mentally, emotionally, very, very juvenile. You know what I mean? So I think stages more so than ages matter.
No, but like I said, you are within the 15 years limit for me. So your situation is different, because 15 years, think about it. It's still, he has some experience. He's 39. I mean, you have been through some stuff. But I'm saying, like, I do really believe that there should be, I cringe when I hear like a wide gap, literally. And I mean, I'm in an age gap, but that's just my opinion or feelings.
And that's fair.
Right,
we're all entitled to our perspective, and it is what it is, right? Someday we'll see where your babies may end up. My son is 28, and I don't know how my perspective on it is, whoever you love who loves you.
Yeah, sure. Well, see, we already onto a great start, but we're going to discuss about how was our weekend. Yeah. How did you guys spend your weekend?
My weekend, I was at work. I was answering multiple calls about our podcast and multiple questions about our podcast. And of course, hearing my male friends talk about how excited they are. Remember, Jerry predicted that the men will be interested. And yes, my male friends, quite a few of them, was giving quite a few, topics. Kim, maybe you could talk, maybe we could. It was all over the place for them. But yes,
conversation.
It is.
How was your weekend?
My weekend. Oh my God. Do I even get rest? So I worked 5 days, and then Saturday, which was yesterday, went to church 10 to 6, because we're in a time of fasting and praying. And I mean, it was amazing. And let me just use this opportunity to invite others to my church. We're in a prior prayerful season. And yes, so I did that, went to a party in the night of a church sister, not a,
I was gonna
church
say,
party.
I was going to say church
and
this
then
morning.
came home after 3 and then got up and go to church again. So that is my life. That is my weekend. And I'm here now with you beautiful ladies.
Of course.
To talk.
It's our pleasure to be here.
Real talk.
It continues. For me personally, again, I worked 5 days in the hospital. And then yesterday was a work day for me in my med spa. I had a couple of clients, so it was a beautiful day. It's always nice when you make a little extra money. On the side.
Yeah.
So again, let's segue back to what we were talking about last week. So one of the things I realized when I was kind of doing the post-mortem on, how our podcast flowed last week was that I didn't think we spent enough time offering persons interventions, right? So what do you do when you discover that you're in perimenopause or menopause, right? So one of the things we know is that it actually has effects on the body over time. Right. So how do you guys feel about, discussing the physical aspects of menopause and perimenopause?
Discussing it?
For our audience. Let's talk about it.
Oh,
Do you have any concerns, even as a woman at your age, at 45, do you have any concerns about the changes that are actually happening in your body right now, given that you're technically perimenopausal, although you're in denial?
No, I have the age. I have the age, but I don't. But I don't have the physiological changes yet.
Okay, ma'am.
But one thing I thought about after our show last week is we didn't even talk about there being gray, the gray hair. More so down there.
Right.
On paper, JJ.
Yes.
So, and you know, that's a big thing for women, because some women, what I heard, started changing from there first.
Yes.
For me, I don't have that problem though, because I do a landing strip. So I wouldn't know when it's really.
So I will say this, a lot of times women, us as women, we don't look at that. Like, you know, I've always not had hair. We don't allow the hair to grow. So I wouldn't have been the person to recognize. So somebody else really had to say, oh, by the way, you know, there's a little gray hair right there. Embarrassing, but it was a reality check, right? Because we generally, I don't know which one of us takes a mirror and goes down there.
I do.
But even for my hair.
Pause. Let me see what her sister she does. So tell me, how does that work? I know why.
I love looking at my girl.
Okay.
I love looking at her.
So, what's her name?
We're not going there.
There's a name.
We're not going there.
Rare.
We're not going there. So when I first discovered that, I was like, when I was getting a wax, my Brazilian wax, I said to my wax technician, I'm like, so Debbie, you couldn't tell me? She's like, that's not professional of me, because she's professional.
So it changed color?
There was one. I found one.
It starts with one.
I found one. And I was looking. I'm like, that is not what it is. That is not what it is. I called one of my girlfriends. She was at the time 49. So I said, how come you didn't tell me that this was a part of it? Like I tell you, like I like accountability partners and I like asking questions and them telling me. So I'm like, how come you didn't tell me? She said, yes, that happened. She said, but you're not supposed to have it yet. I'm like, what do you mean? I think I was 37, 30, 36, somewhere there, but when I found it, and I'm like, no, we have to do something, but we can't. Is there a reverse shop? Is there a reverse way we could take care of?
So, you know, for me, this is why I personally aren't thinking about down there for me, but for the hair, this is why I blonde my hair, because I said when gray hair starts, I won't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then for down there, you know, maybe now in preparation for that stage, because really I'm 45, but even Brian was saying to me last week, but Jill, you don't have any of those changes. And mind you, this is not just me being in denial. My husband is saying, you know, some mood changes or whatever, but who doesn't have, you know, emotional changes or stressors or, you know, but for the dryness or changes in hair, I mean, even if you look at me now, I don't think my blonde is growing out. I don't think I have any grays, and I'm 45. And again, I tied it in with genetical aspect of things. My mom, I don't see any more than misery and miserable, and you know, I don't see anything else that I can. She doesn't experience hot flashes. I mean, we don't go in discussion to talk about her sex life or what she's. But I don't physically see anything with her. Gray hair, same thing, and my dad, same thing. And
So,
they're
yeah.
65.
It speaks to the fact that everybody's going to experience different things, right? So again, even me personally, I didn't really start to see any gray hairs on my head until maybe about a year or so, and they're just like little tiny ones popping up here or there. So you know, it's totally understandable that you don't see anything yet. You're 45, but again, it varies for everyone in terms of symptom presentation, right? And again, even when we talk about the lubrication aspect of the vaginal canal, you may not necessarily experience any changes in lubrication until you're well into. You probably have like you could potentially have like another good 5 years or so before you even start to feel any changes in terms of your sexual, the way your body responds sexually.
And you know, I was reading this research that said when you work out, it puts you 9 years younger than your real age. And I intentionally work out, you know, most mornings. So technically, I'm 35. Technically.
So we're gonna go with whatever technicalities you want to go with, okay? But that's a perfect segue into us talking about the actual pathophysiological changes that happen in terms of our bones. We mentioned changes in our vaginal, structure, how you feel, the lubrication, all of those things, right? So I wanted to take just a few moments for us to talk about it, because we also got some really good questions, solid questions about, painful sex, right? Because we know that as the vaginal canal becomes dried out and it atrophies, we see dried out. I'm using non-medical terms,
right?
Because
For everyone,
understanding
yes.
our audience.
So even though she's doctor, you might hear her say a word or two, but it's for layman terms. We're
gonna use layman terms so that everybody can understand, right? So we know that vaginal atrophy or loss of elasticity happens over time, and then sexual intercourse then becomes painful. It also puts us at risk for having more frequent urinary tract infections. So, we want to prepare our audience for things that
can be.
So, I mean, that's one of the things. Anybody else with anything else as far as a...
Yes. I would say how the confidence that it affects, or how it affects our confidence, whether improving or decreasing. Fertility issues. Nowadays, women are waiting till after career to have children. So fertility issues. You touched on the bone density, bone loss, and
which, by the way, sorry to interrupt you, is actually corrected with the workout. So to your point,
and
working out every day,
adequate
adequate nutrition,
increased
and
protein,
exercise.
weight-bearing exercises.
Yes. So those are some of the things that how it affects us going forward, or work-life balance. As we take
and like last week I was mentioning that when the estrogen decrease and the whole issue with our thyroid too, women, the weight and the insulin resistant, the weight tends to move in the abdomen.
That's a great point.
And we start up this barrel shape instead of so that's another big thing, because I do the weight management, and a lot of my age group reach out to me and said, what, I don't care what I do, I'm not losing the weight, because at a certain age, our age, the perimenopausal hormonal changes comes into play, and now it makes it even more harder for them to
your base metabolic rate slows down,
all the way down,
and at the same time you're losing muscle mass. It's converting into fat, and so it's hard.
All of that pulls in the abdomen.
Yes, and to your point, the increase in insulin resistance also puts us at greater risk for developing heart disease, which is a big factor, especially for women. So I'm going to throw it to you, Dr. Jill, so you can tell us a little bit about why it's important for us to talk about cardiac disease in women in particular.
I know it's a very serious topic, but I think it is something wrong just now.
Why?
I said Dr. Jill.
No.
No, she's there.
We have claimed it.
Yes,
the title is already yours, girl.
Just
said something wrong. No, she did not.
No, ma'am. That was intentional.
Okay, Dr. Tracy, thank you. Thank you for your grace. Okay, so the question is...
I wanted you to talk a little bit about heart disease in women, especially as it relates to the increase in insulin resistance when we're in the perimenopausal and menopausal stage of life. Understanding that there's a whole Go Red for women movement. You want to talk to us about heart disease in women?
That's why it is very important for us to take care of ourselves at this age, because we're at risk now. Hypertension, because everything starts slowing down, right? We can have increased risk for cholesterol. Our cholesterol problems, we go into cardiovascular issues where sometimes the same cholesterol can lead to cardiac arrest. And also diabetes is another big precursor of medical concern that leads into several other things. So bottom line, we have to take care of ourselves. What we put in our bodies is what is the result that we will get out. And that's why I intentionally try to eat right, make sure I'm getting adequate sleep, make sure I'm exercising, and stress. We don't even talk about stress. Stressors of life, just, and this exacerbates every medical problem. And this is why you have people hypertension, and then if they have some genetic predisposed of the diabetes, again it just increases and put people at a greater risk with these issues. So yes, bottom line, take care of yourself.
Yeah. I mean, in summary, it's what you put in that you get out, right?
Yeah.
The time you invest. I mean, one of the things that I know about us women is that we like nice things. And when we're settled in our professions, we like to buy nice bags and purses and cars. And we like to take trips around the world.
Yes.
But what is all that for if we're not taking care of our bodies, right?
If we don't have health.
We
Because health is wealth.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and you really want to be healthy for your partner, right? Regardless of age or the age aside.
Yes.
You want to be a healthy person for yourself first, but then you want to be healthy for your partner. You want to be healthy for your kids.
Yes.
And it's just one of those holistic ways to extend your life.
And as you talk about holistic, don't forget the spiritual aspect of things.
Yes.
It's very important. Spirituality to me, I think, because even with this, God created us to go through different changes, right? And this is why we have to cement ourselves in the Word to prepare us, help us go through these stages. We go from puberty, then we go to maturing, to motherhood, and then to menopause. And if we don't study the Word and align ourselves with the Word, we're going to find it very challenging.
Of course.
Yeah. So when we prepare, we can better address or better go through or better overcome these changes that our body experience.
Just to follow up with what you said about taking care of ourselves for our partner, that too is or taking care of ourselves when in a relationship, and how it affects you going through menopause. Because a woman going through menopause, especially with age difference, that is aware and her body has already started to take these changes, her partner then, have to have that instinct to identify. So the spiritual eyes, if they're not in covenant with religion, with God, to be able then to further say, my wife is going through this moment, have grace, have patience, to understand that, okay, then we're in it together. Not allowing, because a lot of relationships go apart during this time.
Yes.
Like I was talking to one of our viewers, and he said to me that if you're experiencing hot flash and your husband or your partner, your spouse is attentive, you have to also be mindful when you're not during that period or when you're not experiencing that symptom, cater to him somehow. Be grateful, reciprocate some amount of worthiness onto him. So it's finding that balance, that godly balance, that spirituality where you're able to serve each other and knowing that, we're in it together.
Yes. And one of your Kim shared with us, one of the viewers said to her that we should, if you're in a relationship, right, the man is taking care of himself, the woman also should take care of themselves. That caused relationship to break apart too. And then some people say, oh, the man should love you regardless. But to be fair, don't you think you should?
As women, we need to maintain our sex appeal. I mean, men are visual. Men are visual.
How can the man be going to the gym, taking care of himself, and you just think, okay, my role is just going to take care of the house and
my
the
role
children.
is going to keep rolling. My role
thing.
is going to keep rolling.
Your role is going to keep rolling. Here's my thing, right? What I find is that when persons get married, more often than not, it's when you're in your youthful years, and you don't necessarily look ahead to this period in time, right? So this is not necessarily something that you would have discussed with your husband or your wife when you're going through your 20s or your 30s or even sometimes your 40s, right? And it highlights the importance of actually having the conversation before we get there. Because what we have to remember is that men don't understand how our bodies work. And in fairness, we don't necessarily understand how their bodies work either. The difference is that we generally tend to be a bit more expressive, right? So when we're having a hot flash, they know we're having a hot flash. The whole world is going to know that we're having a hot flash. When a man is insecure about his sexuality, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, he's starting to have urinary changes, right? From an enlarged prostate. Whole nother topic, that's for next week when we talk about the men. But if a man is starting to have issues, he's not necessarily going to be relaxed enough and comfortable enough and confident enough to even talk to his wife, let alone a doctor, right? So this is the reason why we have this platform.
Right. And which was one of the other questions that a subscriber had. She said last week she wished we had spoke about how we can approach these discussion without offending whether it's your partner, your mom, or just to initiate the discussion. So Dr. Tracy, how you would say we would approach someone, say a sister then, or your mother, in asking about some perimenopausal changes, and you can go with the spouse too, or if Kim wants to chime in.
So personally speaking, I mean, my personality, I'm not shy, right? My personality lends itself to having discourse and conversations, even about the hard topics, right? And I'm the child that would essentially sit and say, well, so mommy, such and such happened, and I observed such and such between you and Dada. How did you guys even get together, and how did you navigate this part of your relationship? And full disclosure, my parents got divorced when I was 13, and I'm obviously everybody knows my age back now.
You're 51
and look great.
Hello, right?
She looks great.
But even at 13, I didn't understand what I was observing, the dynamic between the two of them in the household. But then looking back at her age, that's why I said to you guys last week that I know she was going through some changes, and some of her behavior was not simply because she was miserable or she had her hands full with 4 girls. A part of it was her body was changing too. She had 4 babies.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So there's a question of what was going on with the confidence. So I actually asked her, and I asked her, do you think you participated in the demise of the relationship between you and my dad? And then the flip side was that I actually went and had a conversation with my father as well. And he was candid enough to tell me that once my mom started having children, her attention shifted to him, to your point. Her attention shifted to the children, and he didn't feel like he had a place in the house. And so then that led to him being, he was out in the street, the infidelity entered the relationship, right? And they never talked about it until I brought it up. They never, 2 people that were married, never talked about the demise of their marriage.
Or what I'm not getting.
Yeah.
So that's important.
You just brought back a PTSD for me, because I remember
here we go.
After I came to America at age 19, and then in my 20s I went back to Jamaica and went to my grandparents' house. Rest in peace, Jim McKay and Venetia McKay. And I said to my grandmother, Mama, you and Papa still have sex? Oh my God. Hell door open. She thought it was so offensive because I asked if they were still having sex. So just imagine if I mentioned something, about that. So for those island parents, I would say, share this platform or this channel with them, and just say, oh, they're talking about menopausal symptoms, and have them listening, and then maybe if they say something, you can other person can piggyback off it to open the door, because it's not you might go to your parents and they openly, discuss the issue.
But not everybody.
Like I tell you, my grandmother cursed me that she said, oh, because you got fired, you think you're a big man. And mind you, I was in my 20s. I was a big man. But I couldn't ask her if she and Papa was still having sex.
So again, that's the taboo, right? I remember my mom turning off the TV if there was a kissing scene on TV. Wow. You didn't have that? That wasn't your house?
No.
Oh, child. If that television was on and 2 people started kissing, click. And then we were raised in Catholic school. I went to Alpha Prep and then went all the way, I graduated from Alpha High. The Catholic, the mindset is
Yes.
that you guys are supposed to be chaste, you're supposed to be
And prim and proper, yes.
you know what I mean? So sex was like, you didn't even say the word out loud.
Yeah.
Right?
Those
So,
other people, yeah.
I think to your point, this is an amazing way to break
Yes.
down the barriers and
Yes.
to really express to our older generation that it's okay to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because whether you talk about it or not, we're going to do it.
We're
Yeah.
gonna experience it too.
We're going to do it.
So
Our
it's like
kids are doing
preparing
it.
us, also
Yeah.
giving us that knowledge. I think it will also set a foundation for us to have open conversation with our partners.
Mhm.
Because if we're coming from a relationship, a nurturing relationship from our parents, then as we grow through life, we're able to have those, you know, open conversations.
Yeah, and back to what Dr. Tracy says before, that you know, the partners, the male aspect, they're not going to openly discuss things. So if you guys are around the same age and going to be experiencing changes, if maybe I can say what I'm going through, maybe open a discussion with that, you know, I feel like, you know, I'm experiencing less sex drive, and then possible maybe you'll chime in too and say what he's going through, you know, so we can open the door that way.
Discussion.
Yeah.
Amazing. Again, I told you guys last week that I actually had the conversation with my partner. And again, but that's my personality, right? I'm going to always be open and transparent because it matters when it comes to your confidence in terms of the bedroom and your sexual activity, right? At some point, that insecurity might just show up in a way where he wouldn't know how to, he probably wouldn't be able to process that that's what's happening. Right? And B, he wouldn't be able to support you through that. And if the age gap is the other way around, the same for you.
Yes,
You know what I
yes,
mean?
yes.
If it is that it is a younger man, older woman, right? So it's important to have dialogue, right?
Yes.
But I want to just touch for a moment on the treatment options. And that's just because I don't want people to think that we're just focusing on, you know,
what is happening and not finding a solution.
and
or
finding
not
a
helping
solution.
them.
Yes,
Exactly. Right? So I kind of put together like a little brief list and you guys can chime in. The obvious one was hormone replacement therapy, which we talked about last week, and we talked about the fact that it's not appropriate for everyone. So if it is that a woman is not a candidate for hormone replacement therapy, where do we go from there, right? So then we have non-hormone medications, and I just discovered this in doing the research for this podcast, me being a real, you know, educated and professional woman. I ain't even know this. But, child, there is an FDA-approved medication called Vioza.
Okay.
Right, which helps with thermoregulation. So it helps with the hot flashes and the night sweat. So guys, if it is, and again, I would have never known to ask my GYN, you know, can I get this? Because I didn't even know it existed.
Right.
So it's good to know that there's an FDA-approved medication for that. Additionally, you can be put on a low-dose antidepressant that can help with mood. That's obvious, right? Mood, the mood swings, the irritability, low-dose antidepressants, and then vaginal treatments, right? So we talked about how the vaginal dryness or the vaginal atrophy puts us at greater risk for developing recurrent UTIs. So obviously, we want to be able to lubricate and minimize the trauma from sex. So they have vaginal insertions, estrogen or non-estrogen therapy. And then you can do a DHEA, which is a testosterone precursor. I put myself on DHEA. I wasn't even going to wait for my doctor. I was like, because I know what's happening with me. And since I know I'm not a candidate for hormone replacement therapy, I was like, so, all right. And then they mentioned energy-based therapy. Last week we had Keisha here who had mentioned PRP for the vaginal canals, and that basically helps to restore some of the blood flow and it preserves. But then they also have CO2 laser therapy and radiofrequency laser therapy that helps with vaginal rejuvenation, and it preserves not just the muscle, but it also helps to preserve the lubrication aspect of it, right? And then off-label, you have testosterone therapy. A lot of women don't know that we have a low level of testosterone, right? So sometimes the testosterone therapy is enough to kind of alleviate some of those symptoms and gets us to feeling back to our normal baseline selves. And then in addition to that, things that we talked about before, vitamin supplements and lifestyle changes, diet, exercise, sleep, sleep is a huge one, right? Because how many of us are not getting adequate sleep, right? And stress reduction. So
yes, stress reduction.
anything else you guys want to add to that?
Well, so I had the conversation with my mom last week after the show.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just telling our mom, oh, you know, the topic.
Breakthrough? Was that a breakthrough? Let's take a
We'll
moment.
see.
Wait.
See.
We don't
What
want to
was
skip
that?
past that.
I said to her,
elaborate.
Mommy, you know, we were talking about perimenopausal changes and hormonal changes. And she said, oh, in Jamaica, people drink a lot of bush. And so, no, I remember because you were talking about all the medical aspect, and I was saying some herbal things because she was saying that's why people from the islands don't experience these, you know, symptoms. But like I said, even if they were experiencing it, but we didn't see like hot flashes, and those things are evident that we can.
So asking me to recommend the bush.
So she said, "Oh, there's a lot of bush, you know, people take." And then there was
particular.
She mentioned a name I don't remember. I was just trying to look up what she had said about you know you can drink that and it helps. So maybe there are some natural things we can look to offer you know our viewers. I was just
you see how that comes from the older generation, circling back to the importance of having the conversation with them because they know things that we don't know.
So Dr. Tracy and Kim, I think that's why we have to bridge that gap.
Yes.
This is why this is so important because we're the one who's going to break this cycle. Just like how they prepare us for puberty and, you know, and administration. In school, they did though. But they didn't. Because I remember doing sex education class.
Yes. I thought you were referring to our parents. Cause,
no, right. Because like I said, I don't remember my mom even discussing, you know, having my period. I think I learned that at school. But yes, well, we can break that cycle and we can bridge that gap, you know, of trying to now educate our children or our peers. And interesting, one of the subscriber again said to me, so I think she's past menopause now because she's like 70 something. But she said, Jill, what I intentionally do, so she is in healthcare as well. And, you know, she works with nurses and other different aspects of the healthcare. She said with the younger girls, she had that discussion openly. She said she's not offended because I was telling her, oh, when my friend called me and, you know, was telling me about her symptoms and was asking me about me, how I got offended. She said, really, you get offended? I said, yes, because in my head all along, I associate menopause with old age. And if you're telling me that now you're saying that I'm getting old, and you know, so she said no. And she said she intentionally educate the younger nurses and different healthcare workers. So we can also try that too, you know, with younger, because people say 40s, they say, oh, it's for people in their 40s. Right? So I tell the 30s, like, listen,
you're not too far behind.
Not too far. You know, and this can actually start in late 30s. So we too can also educate people in our jobs. And, you know, since we're all in healthcare and we can tie in some of these medical stuff and some of your treat therapy. You know, and what about the persons who, when they go through the fertility, like you said, your family is big on cancer, they can freeze their eggs, you know, to be able to have children later on. So, you know,
there are lots of interventions, unconventional, non-medicinal interventions that, you know, people can employ. And I'm glad you touched on the age thing, because if we're going to go by what the Bible says you get 70 years, right? Which is 70. So I'd like to educate people that middle age is 35.
Okay.
If you're 35, you're middle age. So you
can start.
Exactly. Anything after 70 is bonus, you know, that's brata.
Yes, that's
brata.
That's so
we
true.
need to start having the conversation because at 35, and I think it ties into the fact that if you get pregnant at 35 and up, it's considered a geriatric pregnancy because technically
middle age is 35. Yeah, you're true, right.
Yeah, so
and the Bible always says woman should teach to and lead. And you know, that's why God just bring us to different stages even though sometimes we kind of alter it a little bit because we want to get a little Botox and, fix up ourselves. Forgive us for
for your Botox.
A lady in church today asked me, said, Jill, you do Botox? I said, no, the doctor that I do the podcast with, so she'll be coming to you.
Not a problem. I welcome all of it.
So even though the Bible said, we're going to go through changes, but he does give us the knowledge and wisdom in able to kind of delay some of the physical, physiological.
So we can get to your business.
I'm giving you permission. Let's go.
Listen, remember we're in fasting and praying. Don't draw me out.
No, but
please,
we're going to keep her in the word, okay?
Especially when you're fasting. Nobody's supposed to can dry you out, but fasting is your business. So last week, Brian graced us with his presence, and we had a very robust discussion after the cameras went off. We want to know what was the conversation like after you guys went home.
Yes, that conversation.
Talked about
tell us about mommy conversation.
I did. I said a little bit to you guys. He said, Jill, you're really going through those changes. I don't think you're going. And I said, well, you know what? No, I don't think I'm going through any other mood changes. Maybe some, because sometimes I've like just a short fuse, I just have no tolerance then. But as far as decreased sex drive, I would say no. Bone density problems, I don't have issue. I go to the gym. I get up intentional 4:30. I'm at the gym by 5. So what other changes we experience?
No change in the sexual.
I sleep well.
You sleep well. Your weight is fine.
Yeah. Okay. And I think I keep up. Unless Brian can say something otherwise, but I think I keep up.
Don't worry, we're going to have Brian on the men's episode.
Yeah, but he said to me, I don't think you're having any of those symptoms.
It's good to get the feedback from your partner too, because sometimes you're just so in your own routine. You got some meaningful feedback from your husband.
Open the door for you to have those conversations of given the age gap difference and the fact that you will be approaching that age where some certain stuff will be affecting you.
Yes.
But
so you guys spoke to Brian, and I think we can all agree that Brian is a little wise for his age, right? Because like I said, even though Brian said it in a way where it can be offended, Brian already told me, Jill, I'm going to soon have to put you to bed and give you your medication. So, even though he said it but he's very wise.
Aware.
Yes, he's aware. And I think, he knows that I'm going to get old and I'm going to go through some stuff. And I don't want to say old because, we're going to become more mature and more self-aware, So, I don't think.
At them time that the real life are going to begin between you and him. Watch.
Yeah, don't. Because then it might slow down too, and then.
So it's going to be more, I feel like at that as part of, because once he hits 40, it's going to be like, all right, no, it's a whole different mindset.
Yeah.
So I feel like as couples mature with each other and you don't lose that spark, you find different ways that other than the sexual part of it.
The normal routine.
Yeah, alter the norms to find pleasure in each other.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily, I think we focus on the sexual aspect of it, but it's the togetherness. It's the partnership.
Yeah.
That really makes it meaningful.
You're right, yeah.
I think this has been an amazing opportunity to kind of get into your business.
Well, thank God you didn't draw me too far.
Listen, I do not want to be the reason that you don't make it to heaven, okay? So I know to walk the chalk line.
Good point.
But ladies, as always, this has been an amazing time. I think, our audience is probably going to appreciate it a little bit more. I'm glad we had the opportunity to give them some solid medical guidance in terms of what to do now if you find out that you're in perimenopause or even preparing for it, right?
Yes.
Or menopause. There are treatment options. So we encourage everybody to speak to their medical providers. As always, eventually they'll be able to come to see Dr. Jill.
Amen. I love how she's speaking that into the atmosphere, and every word that Dr. Tracy and Kim said will manifest. Can I just?
But haven't I been talking to you, calling you Dr. Jill since before you?
Yes, that's true. And Tracy is my mentor.
Yeah.
Tracy is my mentor. Like a mentor, when you're in the doctorate program, you have to have someone that oversees you, see your clinical hours, and Tracy does that. Okay, so this is why she's already put it out in the atmosphere.
Always.
But can we have one last question about if you're more confident in your 40s or your 20s? What's your perspective on that?
Wow, I have to say, I'm gonna throw it even further. Am I more confident in my 50s? Absolutely. Absolutely. I will say this, in my 20s, and it's coming off of the experience of going through my teen years, some of my teen years. I came here when I was 16, right after high school. So I did most of my early teen years in Jamaica, and then coming here. The culture shock was traumatic in the sense that I went through a period of time where I felt like I didn't belong, right? And it messed with my confidence. And then when I came here, I had to kind of do 1 year of high school because we had not prepared for me to start college. So in that one gap year, rather than sitting home, my mom had me go to high school for 1 year until I went through the college application process. And those kids, the kids here are different personality-wise, right? And so I was always very quiet, very shy, they used to tell me, say, if the breeze blow my ball. I was very, very sensitive. I was a sensitive kid. And I was pretty much like that when I got into my 20s. But then I ended up working in EMS, which is a male-dominated industry, right? So working around a lot of men, and I was small framed, much smaller than this. You know, I got the comments, oh, she's not competent, oh, she's not capable. And it really, again, hit my confidence. It was just hit after hit after hit. But, you know, the way I look at it is, you know, when you get enough friction in the same spot, eventually you develop some scar tissue. It's thicker. It's more resilient. That's me. Okay. So I think by the time I got to 30s, 40s, nobody can talk to me. I will walk in a room and you're going to know I'm there.
Amen.
Okay?
Amen.
My shoulders are always square.
Amen.
Chin up, chest out.
Amen.
I don't sit in the corner like I used to. So even in terms of how I navigate my relationships, right? Because at this stage, honestly, even though my partner keeps talking about marriage, I don't, full disclosure.
Why? We're backing
You
up
have
from
to.
it.
No, let me tell you.
You have to. Marriage is of God.
It is of God, but I'm 51.
We're aligning ourselves with the
All
things
right,
of God.
That's episode 3.
Yes.
I agree.
I think you should
and
go for
I
it,
was
though.
raised
I'm
in church, so
that.
I get it. And you know, you're triggering memories now, because when my mom wanted to get divorced, her pastor would say, no, the Bible says you're not supposed to ever get divorced unless such and such. So the Bible is a whole nother topic. So I'm going to put that aside. But even in terms of dating at my age, right, I feel more empowered to say, this is something that I want for myself, or it's not. And if it doesn't serve me, I do not ask permission to end a relationship. I simply say, you know what, this was great while it lasted. It no longer serves me, and you are perfect for someone, just not for me. I wish you all the best. And I let it go. You know what I mean? So confidence, my confidence is like
off the roof. So
older
you're more confident in your in your 50s
than you were in your 40s or 30s.
Absolutely. How about you?
Confidence for me at this age versus in my 20s have definitely increased dramatically. I've always been the full-figured, voluptuous person, even through my 20s, like nice shape hold, bottom shape hold, flat belly, and all that. But yet still,
this clocking business.
But yet still, it was not something mentally registering. Growing up in Jamaica, where our bodies are always sexualized, we're always idolized as sex symbols, women. So, you know, it took me in a different direction. Like, I need to cover it up. I need to be shy. I need to not be out there. You know, it was all that for me. But at this age, after having 2 children, open it up 2 times to public, strangers. So at this age, for me, it's like, if it don't suit you and it suits me, it's your business. I am going to proceed how Kim sees it fit. We're going to apply if it needs to be applied to my life, and we're just going to do it that way, because that's just how it's going to be. That's just how it is. If I want to do something, and I've been told I'm very stubborn. but it's not stubborn. It's when you've taken that opportunity to love yourself, love on you. It's not stubborn. It's at that point. It's no. I'm making this decision for me. Can you give me your 2 cents? Of course, I'll listen. Don't mean something to follow. So
Yes.
yeah.
How about you?
And for me,
The illustrious, incomparable Dr. Jill.
thank you. Okay, so for me, I've always been confident, always. Younger, like my godmother would tell you, when I'm 2 and I walk in a room, it's like people would know that I'm in the room at 2 years old. Like you said, in 20, you develop that. But for me, that confidence I had, I think it was like a camouflage, so to speak. To me, I feel I was confident, but I think I was still seeking validation because, I would still wonder what people think or, now at this age, it's a solid confidence. It's like, I don't care if it was a dressed down event. If I dress how I feel, I don't care who's dressed down because I'm going to dress up. It's a solid, after you've been through certain experience, certain heartbreaks, certain challenges in life, and how you see how God work in your life, and the great I am live inside of me, and I am who I am, and just aligning myself spiritually. That confidence is, I could care less what anybody thinks.
Yeah,
that's right.
Okay.
It's important to know
And some
who
people
you
might
are.
think, oh, she's show off or she's cocky. No, I am not show off. I am not full of myself. I just walk because I know the Creator has made me for greater things. So
Walk with that
that
confidence.
exactly. So daily I empower myself like that, and yes, so 20s is, looking back, I said it was a confidence that was, I wouldn't say fake, but camouflage, I guess you'd say fake. And you're still deep down, you're not self-aware. You're not deep within yourself. You still seek some validation, whether, you want to think it that way or not. But now I don't.
That's a good point. You actually triggered a memory of mine because I remember, going back to high school days, and we know kids can be so cruel. But I remember that going back to high school days, people used to always, first of all, most people used to think that I was so stush. And that I was just...
Well, we're still
I
agree.
agree.
We're still agree.
Tracy from Alpha.
Yeah.
No, that's a Tracy. No, but you speak very
Oh.
intelligent and intellectual, and I
fluent.
admire that. But in Jamaica, for real, we would call. No, you are. But listen, we wouldn't be here if anyone down to earth. Because me straight down to earth. But in Jamaica, we'll consider you stush. What says stushy?
All right. Okay. Don't get too carried away with that word. But one of the things that messes with your confidence is that the thing that I know is that pretty people dash for at Jamaica.
Of
Pretty
course.
woman just, and it matters not what, financial or what class you're in or whatever. I mean, pretty people just all over the place. And if you're not sure of who you are, right? And to your point, it really comes with being solid in knowing who you are and whose you are. You can't be looking at the next person to say, oh, her hair looks like this and my hair don't look like that, or her this. And even when you're going through life, now you enter in menopause and now I'm starting to see fat, I'm starting to see, listen, if you are not solid in who you are and your purpose and knowing what you're designed for and be willing to walk that out to the end, no matter if nobody else comes with you, you're going to always live in your head. You
Get the outside noise.
You got to block out the noise. So
true.
I love this conversation, but I especially love that we touched on guys.
Yes.
Because
We're setting up ourselves for
we're
next
setting up
topic.
ourselves for the men. We had men who wanted to come in. They wanted to put in their 2 cents. And in fairness, they're all our husbands, boyfriends, sons. Here you are talking about how you feel about your son.
Yeah, maybe we could have no kid ask about it. He would say, Mom, hell no.
No, I think he's too young, right? He's too young to even know himself yet. But in terms of having, probably guys in their mid to late 20s, 30s, whatever, You know, it's important because, again, a woman like me, very often, I don't get approached by men my age. I often get approached by younger men.
I mean, you
and
look
that's
it, so of
why
course they're going
right.
through.
But then once, so it would be interesting to hear their perspective once they find out my age and why it is that they don't necessarily run.
Yeah.
They say, okay, so you're older, but I'm still
ready for a
interested.
challenge. Yeah.
Right? And I will say this, my most successful relationship was with a man. He passed away, God rest his soul. But I was engaged to a man who was significantly younger than me too. Talk about the 12-year-old gap. Yes. Okay. So there's a lot more to me than you're even aware of.
Well, when she's ready to share, we'll be here for it.
I sure will be. I sure will be. We've got a partner.
I'm gonna live and die a cougar, honey.
That's a wrap.
Anyway, on that note, I look forward to doing episode 3. Hopefully we can get some guys in the room. But guys, this was the 2nd episode of the FORTYish Podcast. We thank you guys.
I'm sure we want to do that in Women's Month.
Having the guys.
Are we sure we're ready for that?
Well, yeah, because it also tells
Ties
us.
in with
Bring them in.
We need to know how they feel about us.
Yes.
Right? And it might just help with our relationships. I don't know.
Yes,
We'll see where
we'll see.
Yeah. But guys, thank you so much for joining us on the 2nd episode of the FORTYish Podcast. Like, subscribe, share, push it out, comment, give us feedback. We're looking for all of the feedback, negative and positive, because we are growing. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at FORTYish Podcast. I believe Instagram is at FORTYish_podcast. And on YouTube, it's at FORTYish Podcast, okay? From the FORTYish Podcast, on behalf of myself, Dr. Tracy, Dr. Jill, and the illustrious Kim, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
So guys, we would like you to follow our personal businesses. We're all entrepreneurs, nurse entrepreneur, or healthcare entrepreneurs, you want to call it. My brand is J McKay, and on the J McKay umbrella, I have the scrub line, I have the weight management, and I have the educator aspect of things. You can follow me at J McKay Collection on Instagram, on TikTok, and Facebook.
My name is Dr. Tracy, and I am a med spa owner. The med spa is called the Rejuvenation Suite. I'm located in New Rochelle, New York at 90 Nardozzi Place, Suite 214. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at The Rejuvenation Suite. The website is www.therejuvenationsuite.com. You can also email me at therejuvenationsuite@gmail.com. You can come to me for all of your skincare needs, medical grade facials, Botox, fillers, PRP, chemical peels. I do laser hair removal. I have a facial analyzer. I can tell you all about what's happening with your skin and make recommendations for skincare and so much more. So I look forward to seeing you soon at the Rejuvenation Suite.
My name is Kim Andrade Sadler, owner of Elite Entry Management, for all your door management services, for all your events access, and event entry management. You can find us on Instagram at Elite Management_official. Also, our phone number is 914-771-2334. Let us manage your door. Let us